Hi team, this is my next video from the Introduction to Linux series, and I would like to talk about managing users in Linux OS. Linux is a multi-user, multi-login, multitasking operating system. This means that Linux supports many different users logged in at the same time running different applications. There are two different kinds of users in Linux. Users that cannot log in are called non-login users and are used to run system services. Users that can log in are used for interactive sessions and are divided into the privileged superuser, usually named root, which historically has been the administrator of the system, and the rest of the users, which are unprivileged regular users. It's best practice to always log in as a regular user. To assist in managing a Linux system, users can be added to groups. Access control can then be assigned to the entire group, making it easier to set permissions for multiple people without configuring each individual user one at a time. There are a few things to be aware of. Every user has a username and numeric user ID. Every user must belong to at least one group. When creating a user in Linux, a group is automatically created and the user is added to it. The first group is a user's primary group. All groups, including the primary group, have a group name and a group ID number. The user's primary group has the same name as the user. When the user creates a file, it has a user owner and a group owner. Files created by user by default belong to the user and the user's primary groups only. Users cannot belong to more than one primary group. Users can, however, belong to additional or supplemental groups. All users should have a password to log in, although it's possible to log in with encrypted keys. Lastly, user group names are case sensitive, meaning Bob with the uppercase B is not the same thing as Bob with the lowercase b. This is also the case for the group names and the passwords. It's a common in Linux to create username names only using the lowercase letter. Now let's look at our terminal. Linux store all local user account information in a text file. The text file is /etc/password. Let's view this file by using the ls command. You can see that there is one user account per line. The etc password file uses colons to delimit the columns of which there are 7. Let's take a look at each column individually. Let's use the root as our example. The first column is the username. Root. It's also case sensitive. The administrator's username is root and should be the first line of the file. The second column shows the encoded password, or if the system is using the shadow suite. There will be an X as a placeholder saying the password is encoded and is not stored in this file. It's extremely rare for any modern Linux distribution to not use the shadow suite, so this column usually has an X in it. Before the introduction of the shadow suite, the etc password file would have an encoded password in this column. The problem with this design is that the etc password file is word readable, meaning every user can open it. This wasn't the problem at the time, as the passwords were encrypted with a one-way hash that was very difficult to break. But with the modern computing, given enough time, it's possible. So it's very important to hide the hashed password out of the sites. A hacker cannot hack what they can see. Using the shadow suite, hashed passwords are stored in the etc shadow, a file that is only readable by root. The super user, readable by root, which is a super user. A hacker would need to gain access to root before being able to attempt to crack the shadow file to get the user stored password. The third column is the numeric user ID. System accounts have user IDs between 1 and 999. The fourth column is the numeric ID of the user's primary group. Each user belongs to just one primary group. When a user creates a file, it will be owned only by the user and their primary group. The fifth column is the GECOS comment file. GECOS came from the General Comprehensive Operating System created by General Electric in 1960s. Unix and Linux inherited the file from that operating system. The sixth column is the user's home directory. A home directory is where the user stores their files. By default, the root user's home directory is /root, and regular user's home directories resides in /home/ the username. This can be configured in etc default user add, or by using user add command with the -D option to change the default configuration. The last column is the default login shell. This is the shell that started then the user opens a terminal. The default in Enterprise Linux and many other Linux distributions is bin bash. We can change this by editing the etc-default user add file or using the user add command with the -D option to change the default. You can also specify the default shell when creating a new user. To see the installed shells, we can type in terminal cat etc shells. Cat. Okay. Other shells can be also installed as well. Okay, so this is all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.